Have you ever yearned to deliver a line so sharp, so insightful, that it completely stops someone in their tracks? Not with aggression, not with insults, but with the pure, undeniable force of intelligence. Picture this. You're locked in a debate, and with one calm statement, you cause the other person's voice to drop, their perspective to shift, and their arguments to evaporate. Today, I am going to unveil 5 verbal responses so effective that, when deployed, they can silence almost anyone. It doesn't matter if you are dealing with a demanding boss, a difficult relative, or someone simply determined to get their way. These responses don't just defend you, they place you in a position of authority without you ever losing your cool. And pay special attention. The third response, if used correctly, is capable of disarming even the most practiced manipulator. Stick around until the end, because you will want to master each one of these. Once you begin applying them, you will notice the profound silence that follows. The misconception of power. At some point, everyone has known that same feeling of helplessness. You're presenting an argument that is logical, valid, and important, but the other person simply will not hear it. Even worse, they appear to be winning, not through the merit of their position, but because their voice is louder, their interruptions are quicker, or their attacks are more personal. Our culture often makes the mistake of confusing volume with strength, imposition with conviction, and fear with respect. But that is not respect. It is merely temporary control. True power is not about forcing your will onto others. It is about expressing yourself with such clarity and discipline that the other person is left with no alternative but to listen. Response 1. I don't need to raise my voice to be right. Often, when a discussion intensifies, someone will raise their voice, assuming it lends them authority. They yell, they interrupt, they dominate, and they expect you to match their energy. But if you enter that arena, the battle is already lost. This phrase is a tactical withdrawal from the chaos, allowing you to sidestep the noise without exiting the conversation. Imagine a work meeting, a disagreement at home, or an encounter on the street. The other person's tone escalates as they try to seize control of the atmosphere. And you, rather than meeting their fire with more fire, you remain centered and say calmly, I don't need to raise my voice to be right. This statement does more than just halt the offensive. It sends an unmistakable message. You do not compete on the field of emotional conflict. You operate on the field of intellectual dominance. In that moment, the listener understands that the rules have changed. You are no longer just participating in an argument. You are now leading it. The Stoics taught that self-control is not weakness. It is the ultimate strength. Epictetus warned, he who cannot control his tongue will be a slave to his emotions. That is exactly the principle you are demonstrating here. You have no need to shout because your reasoning is sound. You have no need to impose yourself because your self-assurance is already doing the work for you. This phrase not only silences the aggressor, but also enlightens any onlookers, because when you can speak with tranquility in the middle of a storm, everyone can see who holds the true power. Response 2. The way you speak says more about you than it does about me. When someone comes at you with sarcasm, insults, or contempt, the impulse to retaliate is strong. But that is where most people lose their footing. This phrase acts like a flawless mirror. It does not answer violence with more violence. It does not defend from a place of desperation. It simply reflects the other person's behavior back at them. The way you speak says more about you than it does about me. By simply stating this, you neutralize the poison in their words. You aren't insulting them back, you aren't asking for their validation, and you are refusing to play by their rules. Imagine a conversation takes a turn, and someone makes a comment designed to hurt. You could fire back, but instead, you meet their gaze calmly and deploy that phrase. In that moment, something shifts. They are forced to hear the echo of their own words and feel the weight of their own hostility. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." This response is a perfect application of that Stoic ideal. You not only protect your own inner peace, but you also make the other person confront their own lack of civility. There is a deep lesson here. When you refuse to react as expected, you change the entire dynamic of the interaction. This phrase is for anyone who has decided they will not stoop, they will not surrender, and they will not let another person's attitude dictate who they are. Because when you speak with clarity, calm, and confidence, you are no longer arguing, you are leading. Response 3. Let's talk when we can do it respectfully. Some discussions are not discussions. They are confrontations masquerading as dialogue. The other person cuts you off, raises their voice, dictates their version of the truth, and expects you to follow suit. But you have no obligation to participate in a rigged game. This phrase is not a retreat, it is a statement of principle. Let's talk when we can do it respectfully. It's direct, mature, and firm. You aren't running away, you're raising the standard for engagement. Imagine you are debating someone who will not allow you to finish a single thought. They interrupt you time and again. Their tone is hostile. Instead of escalating the conflict, you pause, you take a breath, and you say calmly, "Let's talk when we can do it respectfully." In that instant, you shift the entire axis of the conversation. It is no longer about the topic at hand. It is about the baseline conditions required for any meaningful conversation to take place. This type of response is a perfect reflection of Stoic self-mastery. As Epictetus taught, you cannot control what others do, but you can control what you will accept. By saying this, you are making it perfectly clear what you will and will not tolerate. You don't need to shout or justify your position. You simply establish an emotional boundary that compels the other person to examine themselves and frequently to be quiet. Because anyone who cannot speak with respect loses the right to speak with you. Response 4. I'd prefer not to continue this conversation. There are moments when talking any further is completely pointless. The other person is not listening and has no intention of understanding. They just want to win, no matter the emotional cost to you. That is when this phrase becomes your ultimate protection. I'd prefer not to continue this conversation. It's simple, clear, and incredibly powerful. It does not ask for permission. It does not offer an excuse. It simply brings the interaction to an end. Imagine you are arguing with someone who is intent on provoking you. Every word is a barb, and you can feel your composure starting to slip. Instead of losing your temper, you breathe, look at them calmly, and say, I'd prefer not to continue this conversation. The effect is immediate. It severs the toxic dynamic at the root. And crucially, it puts you back in control. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed." When you choose to end the conversation, you are protecting your energy, your focus, and your dignity. This is not an act of giving up. It is an act of deciding that your peace of mind is worth more than having the last word. And anyone who sees you do this will understand that you are not avoiding conflict, you are rising above it. This phrase is like an emergency exit, and sometimes taking that exit is the strongest thing you can do. Response 5. That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it. Not every disagreement is with an enemy. Sometimes arguments happen with friends, coworkers, or family members who insist on imposing their worldview on you. Their intentions might be good, but they inadvertently overstep your boundaries. In those moments, you need a phrase that can define your position with respect while refusing to yield ground. That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it.
This is a response that builds a boundary, not a wall.
It says, I hear you, I acknowledge you, but I have my own mind. Imagine someone close to you is pushing you to do something you don't want to do, to accept a belief you don't hold, or to agree with a judgment you find unfair. Instead of getting into a point-by-point debate or staying quiet to avoid friction, you tell them in a firm, with calm voice, that's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it. The result is remarkable. The other person must accept your position because you have given them no angle for attack. You are not invalidating their point of view. You are simply reaffirming your own. Seneca stated it perfectly. To be a slave to the opinion of others is the worst of all prisons. This phrase is the key that unlocks that prison. It is a refined way of saying, I think for myself, and I don't need your permission to do so. Using this response will give you something very few people possess: emotional autonomy. And when people realize they cannot sway you with pressure, their respect for you will grow. Conclusion. You now have 5 responses that will not only defend you, but also strengthen you. 5 phrases that, when spoken with calm, confidence, and clarity, will make the other person go silent. Not because you have defeated them, but because you have risen above the conflict. Respect is never imposed by force. It is inspired by character. Let's recall them one last time. I don't need to raise my voice to be right. The way you speak says more about you than it does about me. Let's talk when we can do it respectfully. I'd prefer not to continue this conversation. That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it. Do not underestimate the impact of these phrases. When you practice them and make them a part of your life, you will notice a clear shift. People will begin to listen to you more closely and treat you with more consideration. You will no longer be an easy target for manipulation or provocation. You will be someone with presence, with self-control, and with a powerful voice. Here at Stoic Spring, I teach you to think, speak, and act with the wisdom of the great philosophers so you can live with more respect, inner peace, and mental fortitude. Subscribe now and turn on notifications because what's coming will transform you. And tell me in the comments, which of these phrases are you going to use first? I'd love to read your answers.